think we showed some grit with enough stops defensively and enough plays offensively. Left some front ends of the bonus, some free throws out there. But so I thought there, you got to be in those spots. It's new for a number of guys to be out there at that time. And some guys, stepped up and made enough plays. And again, on both ends, still areas for improvement. But as I told you guys, well, I told Dave and some of those Vermonts, well coached, physical, tough. Lamb, he reminded me, Bach and I were talking on the way in, Jordan Nora from Louisville. They kind of have the same hair, but that ability to do that. And I told our guys after, I said, there's a saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And, or maybe fool me 7 times. But he hit some great shots. He did. But I think 2 or 3, we just well, you're not going to shoot that. Well, yes, you are. And we have experience with guys doing that from unlimited range. And so I felt like that can be enough in a possession game to cost you. So anyways, but we'll learn and we'll grow from it. And a lot of respect for that program and what Coach has done and how hard those kids are. Very veteran team. You can see it. They were unfazed by the atmosphere, which was terrific. So hopefully it's good for both teams.
Tony, to your eye, how much of his shooting was just a remarkable performance by him, and how much of it was maybe giving him space? Because it seemed like Mamadi was on him pretty close.
Both but excuse me, you look at them statistically, they are not shooting well, but because they're all returners for the most part, I looked more at what he shot last year from 3 and what their team shot, and he was, I think, in the 30s, upper 30s last year, and he shows that he's a problem at the elbows. I have the utmost respect for him, but when a guy like that all of a sudden can stretch you out, it's impressive. And we did do a good job on him for most part, but I think 65-35 was good shots, 35 we broke it down, or maybe 70-30. But I thought there was enough times, and those 2 or 3 threes could have been the difference when we just, come on, and that's the stuff we got to get better at.
Tony, statistically, you guys had not been shooting it very well until the second half tonight, better than 50%.
Right.
And 5 for 11 from 3. What did you think was the difference for your group offensively in the second half?
Well, we tried to spread it out. We tried a few things, and kind of a little asterisk is Cody didn't play Statman, and that we were trying to sometimes play big, with Braxton, who did a good job. I thought he showed maturity in the second half. He did. He really was more poised in the second half, and Kihei was terrific in the second half. Jay Amamani made some plays, but we tried to spread it out at times, attack some ball screens. When they switched, we got a couple high-lows and just tried to do what we do. It's a different deal. We're still spinning the wheel a little bit, say what's going to stick, what can we do, and we found a couple things that I thought the guys played in space and took the right shots when they presented themselves.
Tony, I thought part of the offensive problem in the first half was the 7 turnovers, only 3 after the break. What did you see, and did being in a tight game maybe bring out some of the best in ball security for you?
I hope so. I thought we were a little impulsive at times. Braxton in the first half had 3 or 4 turnovers, and I told him a couple of them were just missteps, miscommunication between. It wasn't he threw it to the spot where we usually have a guy, but I just said soundness. I said they're baiting us into it. Take care of the ball, nothing earth-shattering. I thought he valued it a little more, and the way we're going to win, we know our way. It's got to be sound with the ball, and get the right shots, make free throws, and then be tough as nails defensively.
Early on, did you see Kihei as the kind of guy in his second year who would score 15 points, hit some big threes down the stretch, and just be the scorer he's been?
Yeah, I've learned not to question him and what he can do because I saw him in some remarkable situations as an inexperienced first year in the biggest moments, step up and do a number of things when it was needed at the most high intense times or high pressured situations. So it was great to see that. It really was, and he's so quick. He can put pressure on you off the ball screen, but if they go under, he's shown he'll knock down the 3. And I saw him do it that's what drew me to him when he was playing AAU ball, and I saw that. I said, this guy's good, and watching tape on him, saw him do that in high school a number of times.
Coach, you got a young team still trying to figure out its way. How nice was it to see them respond? You had a 9-0 run from like the 5:15 mark. Once they took the lead, you had a 9-0 run that basically kind of stretched it out. How nice was it to see them, kind of assert themselves?
Yeah, they did a good job. I think, Vermont's probably frustrated with a couple of errors that they had, probably uncharacteristic with their experience. But yeah, you have to be in those spots. And, Casey, he picked up a nice charge, or it wasn't a charge, the ball went out of bounds, whatever it was. So, what, I just want those guys to be as sound as they can in those spots that haven't been in there. They don't have to be heroes. They just got to be, I said, you don't have to be great. You just got to be good and solid. And so, yeah, to handle the situation the way we did and make some shots, get some stops, partly some of Vermont's unforced errors, I think was important for this team to experience and have success in.
Tony, what is the situation with Cody, and when do you expect him back?
Yeah, hopefully soon. He was just very sick, very ill, so we'll make sure he's been a little under the weather, and he just had a real bad couple of nights in practice yesterday, and we tried to give him an IV and make sure, see if he perked up, but he did not, and so we just said, we sent him home, get rest, and, we're pretty thin in our guard rotation, so that's why we were playing it pretty close to the vest, but hopefully he'll be okay, but we'll get some tests tomorrow and see how everything is.
Coach Casey got the high five of approval for defense on that half-court play. What have you liked out of his defense? Also, what do you tell him when he's clearly still struggling to get shots to fall?
I told him yesterday or the other day, I said, first of all, I recruited you because you're a heck of a person that represents what we believe in, and you're a heck of a player. And but let's start defensively. I said, be a defensive warrior for us. I said, be a defensive maniac. Play wild-eyed. Get on the floor. Grab some rebounds. Spread out. Find your identity in that. And offensively, you just be sound, take the shots when they're there, and don't stress about it too much. That's all I know what to say. And I thought he really tried hard to be as good as he could defensively, and he's still finding his way, but what an invaluable opportunity that he had to be in there.
Tony, when Lamb was heating up, what kind of conversations were you having with your staff and trying to figure out a way to slow him down?
Yeah, we said, should we, switch the ball screen? We had Braxton on him, then we had Mamadi on him, and then should we switch a ball screen late? They're the typical things you go through, a little bit, do you run at him? But as I said, a couple of those were frustrating because we fouled or we just weren't ready, and that wasn't acceptable for that part of it. After that, I can live with the shots that he hit because for the most part, I didn't like the one at the end of the half because I didn't think we closed with urgency that, sometimes a guy like that who has not been shooting it well as of yet, all of a sudden, he hit the game winner against St. John's with a play, but all of a sudden he got his rhythm, and then the way he started, he said, I've seen this story before, and we just said, make him earn. That's all we can do, and there's no out-of-range shot for a guy like him and others we've seen.
This is the first time in Mamadi's career here where he's been a real focal point on offense. How do you think he's handled kind of that role, being a go-to guy late in the game?
Yeah, he's played well. I think he just has to continue to stay within himself, but stay aggressive and just lock in. And I said, we need his ability to do things and just sound and tough and let your play do the talking. And that's the best way. And play with passion, but remain humble and let your play do the talking. I think that's really important.